All right, let's get to knitting. I'm going to start over again and knit a whole new one because the first time I recorded this video, I lost all my footage. So let's try again. I'm also going to use a different yarn this time and we'll see how it works. So let's begin. We're going to start by casting on 25 stitches with the long tail cast on. And then after you've done that, we'll begin our knitting. Pause the video as you need to. All right, we are going to start out by knitting 10 stitches. And number 10. Now we are going to do a knit two together. So we'll knit the next two stitches together as one stitch, doing a decrease. We're going to knit a stitch and then we're going to do a slip slip knit. So we're going to slip the first stitch knitwise, we'll slip the second stitch knitwise, and then we'll take our left needle and just kind of stick it through the front loops on the right needle, or front loops of the stitches on the right needle, yarn over, and we'll knit those two together, and then we'll knit the last 10 stitches. Give my camera a second to stop being blurry. There we go. All right, finish knitting these last 10 stitches. And yes, I do have an exceptionally long tail. I left that per the directions so that when it comes time to stitch everything together, I have the yarn that I need and I don't have to worry about tying any on or any of that, hopefully. And our last one. All right, just gonna kind of straighten everything out here, and now we're ready to purl. So for the next one, we are going to purl 9 stitches. We are going to purl 2 together, purl a stitch, and then we're going to purl 2 together through the back loop. And remember to do that, basically we're taking our right needle, and let me take it off camera for just a second. So basically to purl 2 together through the back loop, I have to go into my stitches through the back loop like that, kind of like I'm getting ready to knit them. So our knitting needles kind of look like this at first, but coming up through the back loop. Then I'm going to take my right needle and pop it forward so it's back in the purling position. I'm going to take my working yarn, my yarn over, and I'm going to purl those 2 stitches together by pulling that yarn over through. There we go. And now I'm going to finish purling my last 9 stitches. and stitch number 9. All right, now we're ready to go to our next row. On our next row, we are going to knit 8 stitches. Then we're going to knit 2 together. We're going to knit 1. We are going to slip, slip, knit, and then we'll finish knitting the last 8 stitches. Okay, now we're ready to purl the next row, and we're just going to purl it. We're not going to do anything fancy, no extra, no decreases, nothing like that. We're just going to purl this row. Since all I'm doing is purling, I will come back to you in just a second when I'm finished with purling. All right, once you've completed your purl row, it is now time we're going to cast off 3 stitches, and we're going to do that like a normal cast off. We'll knit a stitch, knit 2 stitches. We're going to take that bottom stitch over the top of the second stitch and off the needle. So we'll do that 1, 2, 3 times. Okay, that's number 3. And now we'll just knit the rest of this row. I'll come back to you when I'm ready to start the purl row. Okay, now we're going to start our purl row, and we're going to cast off 3 stitches at the beginning of this row as well, but we're going to do it in pattern, in purl. So we're going to purl a stitch, we're going to purl another stitch, take that first loop up and over and off, do that one more time for number 2, and we'll do that one more time for stitch number 3, and then we'll purl the rest of the row. And I will come back to you when I am done purling. Alright, when you've completed that row, you should have 13 stitches on your knitting needle. And now we're going to do 4 rows in stockinette stitch. So we're going to do knit, purl, knit, purl. And I don't see any point for you to have to watch me knit and purl. So I will do my knits and purls off camera, and I will come back to you when I've completed my 4 rows. Okay, now we are going to cast 3 stitches on at the beginning of each row. And to do that, we're basically just going to knit them on. We're going to knit 1, 2 and 3, and then we'll knit our row. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, I'll be back in a minute when I've completed knitting this row. All right, now we're on a purl row, and even though we're on a purl row, I still want to go ahead and knit, or I want to cast on 3 stitches, but I'm going to do them in a knit style, not in a purl style. I'm going to basically knit 3 stitches. 1, 2, and stitch number 3. All right, now I can purl them. Okay, I'll be back to you in just a moment when I've finished purling. This row. All right, at this point you should now be back to 19 stitches, and we are going to knit the next 9 stitches. We're on a knit row, so we're going to knit, we are now going to turn our work as though we are going to purl. We're going to go the back side to the purl side, but we're not going to purl. We're actually going to take our working yarn and put it between our knitting needles back to the back, kind of like we're going to knit, and we are going to cast on 10 stitches. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and stitch number 10. After we've cast on 10 stitches, we'll bring our yarn back to the front again, like we're going to purl, and we are then going to turn our work one more time, but we're going to turn it back to the knit side. So the knit side's facing. Okay, now we are going to knit some more. We are going to knit 2 together. So we're going to knit the next 2 stitches together off of our right needle. Like a normal knit 2 together. I don't know why I'm having trouble here, but for some reason I am. Take it off cameras for a second so I can get my needle in properly. Okay, there we go. We're going to knit 2 together. Then we are going to knit 8. And stitch number 8. There we go. 8 stitches. Yes, it's going to have a little hole there. That's where our little head and our ears are going to be. Okay, now we're going to go to our purl row. On our purl row, we are going to purl 12. Purl 12. just lost a stitch. Come back here. 10, 11, and 12 stitches purled. Now I'm going to purl 2 together. So I'm going to purl the next 2 together. Then I'm going to purl 2 together through the back loop. And that's very hard for me to do on camera, so I'm going to take that off camera for just a second. So I can see what I'm doing to put my knitting needle in. Alrighty. For some reason it's giving me lots of trouble. There we go. Got it. Okay, so I've done it now. Now I'm going to finish purling the last 11 stitches. No, 12 stitches. Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and stitch number 12. We're going to turn it over to our knit side, and you're going to cast off the first 5 stitches. You know how to cast off. Remember, knit 2 stitches. We've already done it before in this. Knit the first 2 stitches, take the bottom stitch over the top, and you're going to do that 5 times. Number 2, 3, 4, and number 5. And then I want you to finish knitting that row. Or actually, that's not true. We're going to knit 5 stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Do a knit 2 together. Do a slip, slip, knit, and then you're going to knit your last 11 stitches off. 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'll be back with you in just a minute. I'm going to finish knitting this row off camera. All right, we're going to do the purl side now, and on our purl side we are going to cast off 5 again, but do it in pattern. We're going to purl, or sorry, yeah, purl 2, cast off, 1, 2, 3, 4, and number 5. Then we are going to purl 4, 2, 3, 4. We're going to purl 2 together, and we're going to purl 2 together through the back loop. As usual, I'm doing it off camera because it's just easier for me that way. Okay, and then we'll finish up the row by purling 5 more. That should be what's left on your other needle. 1, 2, 3, 4, and I have an extra. I'll need to go back and figure out why, but at the end of your row, you are now going to, if you have 12 stitches, which is what you're supposed to have, for some odd reason this keeps happening to me, and I keep ending up with an extra stitch, and I'll figure out why here in just a minute. And I think I figured it out. We are going to, yep, I think I figured it out. Okay, what we're going to do is we are actually going to now knit and purl 6 rows. So you're going to knit 3 rows and purl 3 rows. Knit, purl, and I'll be back here in just a minute when we're done doing our knits and purls. All right, and when you're done with all your rows, you are now ready to cast off. I got my stitches fixed, so I was back to 12. We're going to do a cast off row. Remember, we're going to knit 2, take the bottom stitch over the top and off the needle, knit your next one, bottom stitch over the top stitch, and complete it the rest of the row. I'm going to do mine off camera, and we'll be back together in just a second once we've cast off. When you are done knitting and have cast off, it should look something like this. And yes, there's a little hole up here. We're going to sew that together in a little bit because that's going to be our ears. But let's get ready to sew our project together now. You're going to need a knitting needle or a yarn needle, whatever yarn needle you want to use. I'm going to use this little small one here. That long tail that I kept when I cast on, I'm actually going to use to sew it together. Now it's going to seem kind of odd because I'm going to cast on in a funny place or sew together in a funny place, but we're going to fold our project so that it is wrong side facing out, so the purl side facing out. We're going to match up our legs and everything. And we're going to follow the outline of our pattern until we get to the head. So now I know my yarn is down here in this corner, and I actually need to close this up here too. I'll worry about that in a little bit. That'll be the last place that I close up. I'm going to start right here, and I am basically just going to do a whip stitch. That's all I'm going to do. I'm just going to go through both sides and sew it together. I'm not being fancy. I can be, but I'm just going to sew. Sorry, yarn got stuck on my desk. I'm just going to sew it together. I'm going to go around my legs. sure I follow through on them. I keep getting my yarn stuck on the corner of my desk. Ah, it's frustrating. The yarn tail. There we go. I'm going to go across the belly. I'm going to get to the corner. I'm going to pull it kind of tight to differentiate the leg. There we go. And then I'm going to go up the side of the leg. Said I'm not doing a fancy stitch. I'm just whip stitching it. If you had black yarn, I think it would hide any issues that you had a lot better than light color yarn. But because it is a Scotty dog, but it's yours and you can do it in whatever color you want. Okay, I'm going to come up the front of my dog's legs, going toward my puppy's head. And now at the neck right here, I'm just going to pull a little tight stitch right there to differentiate. That's the neck. And now I'm going to start my puppy's head. And again, I'm just going to go back and forth just like I have been. Oops, let me get that off the edge there because that kind of went across the edge. There we go. So I can go back across the front. Finish out these last 2, 3 little stitches, however many I decide to do. 2, 3, and I think I'll do one more for number 4. Perfect. Before I close it out, I'm just going to come through it because I'm going to knot it right there. And then I'm going to do one more little knot stitch into it to knot it. Now I'm going to cut it away. I'm going to worry about my tail right here because not a biggie. It's going to hide inside. I'm going to turn my little puppy right side out. And tuck that down in there. Okay, there you go. That is your little Scotty dogs. Big dog, little dog. I can't wait to see yours, and I can't wait to see a cute little collar on them.